goes down, the stars come out.
Today you are going to learn all about databases. Please enjoy. What is a database? A database is a collection of data organized so that its contents can be searched and updated. To make it simple, imagine a field of flowers. Now suppose you want to record down each and every flower in that field. How would you do it? What would you use? Pen and paper? Your brain? Pickles? No!
You would use a database.
In a database, all the data is stored in one or more tables. Just to clarify, a table is like a grid. In the table there are fields and records. A record is all data about one thing represented by a row in the table. And in our case, all the details of a single flower. A field, on the other hand, is a category represented by a column on the table. In our case, some examples would be a flower's type, color, or size. There are two types of databases, flat file databases and relational databases. In a flat file database, there is only one file or table of data. To make each record unique, there has to be a sort of identifier. This is also known as the primary key. For example, in a database about cars, the primary key would be its license plate. In a relational database, there can be more than one file or table of data. The link between the two or more tables is called a relationship. The three types of relationships are one-to-many, one-to-one, and many-to-many. Another thing about relational databases is that the primary key of one table would be linked to another field, which would be the foreign key. To make things simple, a relational database contains two tables linked together through a relationship by one table's primary key and the other's foreign key. There are many different types of data, 6 to be exact. These are auto number, alphanumeric or text, numeric, date or time, currency, and boolean. Some you may not have heard of before are auto number. It will automatically add 1 to the database for each record added. For example, 1 for the first, 10 for the 10th record. Boolean is just a specific term meaning data is restricted to your two choices, yes or no. Databases are everywhere in our lives. Some examples include Google, iTunes, and Bing. Now we have explored the basics of databases. Let us see what we can do with this one. Have you ever heard of query? A query is basically like a search engine. You type in the criteria in order to find what you want. They are a great way of finding information you need, especially if you have a gigantic database with thousands of records. This is what you get when you create a query. Under the field you want, you could type the parameter, or the criteria. Some examples of types of parameters you could use are greater than, less than, greater or equal to, lesser than or equal to, between. Wildcards are a type of parameter that use asterisks as an unknown value, number or letter. For example, B asterisk would search for anything that starts with a B. Asterisk D would search for anything that ends with a D. There are two types of queries, simple and complex. A simple query contains one parameter while a complex one contains more than one. Queries are great for making the job of searching much easier. In fact, you could have used one before. Search engines are like queries, except they are much more complicated and may hold over thousands of websites. Now that we know what a query does, suppose you want to present your data in a neat, formal, and fast way. You could use a report. A report is like a printable, good-looking form of your database. Now that we have covered almost all you need to know, let us teach you about validation rules. You need validation rules to make sure that your data is sensible, complete, and within reasonable boundaries. They are simply there to reduce the amount of errors you can make when entering data. Range check. Checks if a number is in range. Type check. Checks if the correct type of data is entered. Length check. Checks if the right number or characters are entered. Lookup. Creates a list of items which you could regularly be entered. Picture format check. Check for the right format of the characters. Present check. Checks if you have entered anything. Although validation rules do reduce the amount of errors you can make, they don't completely eliminate them. For example, if you spell name wrong, no amount of validation will ever pick up that human error. When you are designing a database to hold data, one of the first choices is how you will collect and store your data. One of the things that you could consider to do is code, or shortening the data to improve the efficiency of your system. You still remember the little field of flowers, right? If you want to shorten the original data, for example flower color, you could assign codes to each color. BL could stand for blue, and R would stand for red. Coding allows you to speed up the rate at which you enter data, and also make it harder for you to make a mistake, so you are both more accurate and efficient. It also uses up less storage space by saving the amount of letters required. However, coding can also lead to many drawbacks. A key term is corseting. Corseting is like using sandpaper to smooth out all the edges of an irregular ball, turning into a perfect sphere. If you have many shapes, by smoothing out all the edges and making them all spheres, it is much easier to choose or categorize them. Yet, how would we know if the shape that you started was cubic or even a pyramid? The problem with coding is that when you coarsen data, some of the subtle details are lost. You lose the more specific details that might make light blue different from dark blue. Making a database is easy, but designing and perfecting one could be harder than you think. Thank you for watching.
I love the mountains. I love the clear blue skies. I love big bridges. I love when great whites fly. I love the whole world
And all its sights and sounds. Boom-de-yada, 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 boom-de-yada.
I love the oceans.
I love real dirty things.
I love to go fast.
I love Egyptian kings.
I love the whole world.
And all its craziness.